Yeah, sure. So, like you said, you studied here 4 years ago. What's it like to be back and things? Like, have you missed it?
It's been. I did miss it initially.
Yeah.
It was a long 3 years, but no, it's really strange to be back. It's very different, but also very the same.
Okay.
So obviously the people are very different, but the staff are pretty similar. It's
Okay.
great. It's so weird to see and be part of a conversation that I remember being part of here. I remember being sat there, not really sure what to do, and I remember thinking, what should I do? And the most important thing is, I think, between then and now and coming back, is just having the drive to keep going and to keep pushing and thinking about what you want to do and what you want to get from your career.
And that's ultimately the advice you're giving.
Definitely is. Write as much as you can, be involved in as many conversations as you can, make sure that you're putting your work out there, ask for feedback, get people to tell you what's best and maybe what isn't working, but also to be open to considering new things. I certainly never would have thought that Gay Times would be a publication that I would want to work for and to be able to lead now. So it's an interesting thing for me to be able to look back and think about the different journeys and chapters that I've had, and just say to people, go out there wanting to make it succeed, and I'm pretty much guarantee that it will.
Sure, thank you. So that was Will. Yeah, thank you.
Hello and welcome to Shoe Radio again. We now have Chris from NCS. Chris, do you want to tell us a bit about what NCS do and what you are basically?
Okay, so my name's Chris and I'm a brand ambassador for the Challenge, which is one of the main providers of NCS, which is National Citizen Service.
Yeah.
So essentially what we do is we provide a summer programme for young people aged 15 to 17 to develop a variety of different skills. It's about team building, it's about getting young people positively engaged in their community.
Yeah.
So I've now worked for NCS this will be my 5th summer in a variety of different roles. So I've worked as a mentor, which is where I've led my own team of 12 young people throughout the programme. So being that kind of person of guidance, giving that pastoral support, and I also get to take part in all the activities. We go away, we do sort of outward bound stuff. I've done rock climbing, caving, canoeing, loads of really fun stuff. And then I've also sort of worked with these groups of young people in the local community. So we've been, I've worked with local charities, working with adults with learning disabilities, with youth groups, with refugee groups. So through this organisation, I've worked with such a huge, diverse range of different people and gained quite a lot of skills off of it.
Yeah. How did you get into the NCS itself? Like, what prompted you to get into it, really?
I think I actually luckily heard about it through word of mouth, and then I applied. I just graduated. And applied and got on for that first summer as a mentor, and then I just keep coming back each year really because I really enjoy it in the summer, and it's and I've developed a lot of different skills, leadership skills, team building skills, that having that on my CV has actually really helped me in gaining employment in other areas as well.
How are you finding Pathways as the event so far? Are you enjoying it, or have you mentioned you've been before to Sheffield for the careers?
Yeah, I've done one. I did one at a careers event about a year or so ago, which was really good. This one's a little bit different, which is nice. Different building, and spoken to some cool students. You've got quite a nice representation of different organisations here, so yeah, I'm enjoying it.
You mentioned about obviously how people can gain a lot of skills. What type of skills would seem to develop more when working with NCS? Obviously, you mentioned team building.
Yeah, I think leadership is a big one because that's something that can often be difficult to experience to gain, especially when you're new to the working world. Whereas coming to work with us, we've got those leadership roles. As a mentor, you're leading a team of 12 young people, and that's not easy to do.
No,
I'm also working in the classroom as well in schools, so it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's a really good environment to do it in because it's very positive.
How can people volunteer to sign up for the NCS service? Where else can they find you to, other than obviously this event itself?
Okay, so you can go to our website, which is ncsthechallenge.org.
Yep.
And if you go /staff 18, and that will take you to our staffing recruitment page, and you can have a look at all the different roles on offer. I've only mentioned one of them, but we've got loads and loads of different roles. So we've got, as well as the mentor role, if you've already got loads of experience working with young people, you can do a leadership role, so come and lead a program. We've also got office-based roles. one-to-one support roles. So if you've got experience supporting young people with additional needs, you come and work with us doing that. We're also looking for people to come and facilitate our workshops. So we do workshops developing skills in campaign design, using social media, all those kind of things.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Have you got anything planned after the Pathways event? Are you going to look around at some of the other stalls up maybe, or are you just going to stick to your own?
Yeah, no, I've already had a little quick whip round on the other stalls, but I'll definitely.
The VR stall's quite cool, to be fair, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely, very good. Yeah, I'm impressed. Yeah, it's a very professional event. I thought.
It's brilliant.
This first time I've viewed on the radio for our careers event.
Well, you're doing well so
definitely.
far.
Brilliant.
That's everything, mate. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks a
Appreciate
lot.
it. Thank you very much.
It's an easy one, Gary's. Excellent. Yeah, back row.
So you've gone from like Hollow FM to BBC Breakfast. Like what's next for you in your journey? Like, where do you see yourself?
That's a good question. I mean, I always try and have. I've always thought, I don't know what I think about this.
Pathways is an exciting networking event held by Sheffield Hallam University, bringing together like-minded entrepreneurs and businesses to discuss current trends and employment opportunities.
So at the moment, for the last few years,
Special guests from across the industry, including journalism, film, games design, photography and media production.
Football books. So those were my three things. I've written those books now, and I won't write another one for a few years. So then I moved on to BBC Breakfast, Football Focus, and a couple of documentaries that I was working on. And now I've done those documentaries. So I was fortunate enough last week, I got commissioned for a new, which one of these waters is my word? I got commissioned for a new quiz show on one, which we film in May and goes out in September. So the three things at the minute are BBC Breakfast, Football Focus, and this new thing called Chase the Case, which would be magnificent, by the way. I was in September. Perfect for you lot. In terms of where I might be 5-10 years down the line, I really don't know. Take that one on, but I really enjoy what I'm doing. I didn't think I would enjoy BBC Breakfast as much as I have. I've been there for 2 years now. I didn't think I would stay as long at Football Focus as I have. I've been there 9 seasons now. So the good thing about it is every week feels different. And I feel very privileged to have a job, well, sort of 3 jobs now, where all those things sort of work together but are very spend 2 weeks in Scotland filming a new quiz programme. So it's a really nice mix, but I don't know where it might go in a few years' time, who knows. Enjoying the ride at the moment. Yes. Oh, you've already asked one. I'll come back to you in a minute. Yes.
So you said you did 2 weeks at Sheffield Hallam.
Yeah.
FM. What made you stand out to get to BBC Breakfast?
That's a good question. Very tall. I think again, that's a really interesting one because there were about 9 of us who worked on the sports side of things for those 2 weeks that I was there. And the guy who was in charge at that time was a guy called Steve Banyard, who now is a commentator. He does sort of world feed commentaries for Sky and various. Sheffield Wednesday, and he just ran out of the studio and went, I need someone to do this, threw me the piece of paper and said, in the studio 2 minutes. And I went in 2 minutes later, and now thankfully I knew enough about the background to not have to research anything. So I went in and did 2 minutes, and he came out afterwards and said that was really good. And then the following Saturday I got sent to a game, a rugby union game, and I did the updates on that rugby union game. And I'd spent the vast majority of my young life pretending to be a commentator. So that sort of fell into it as well. So I was quite fortunate I got given those two opportunities. And then on the back of those two opportunities, they gave me some newsreading shifts. And then after that, at the end of the 2 weeks, they said, we'd really like you to stay on, but we can't have you here. So then I went on somewhere else. And I mean, I joked about the cup of coffee, but I also, it's attention to detail. I went round the office and I made, this sounds sad, but I went around the office and I made didn't have a phone those days, so I made it on a piece of paper. I made a note of everyone's name in the office and how they liked their tea and coffee. So whenever I went in, I made everybody a cup of tea and a cup of coffee exactly as they wanted it. And then that's just, I mean, it sounds stupid, but no one else did that. And also, one of the guys who worked there said, if you ever send a CV, send it with 2 tea bags. And I've always done that. Just a stupid thing. And that got me a job later on in my career. I sent my CV with 2 tea bags sellotaped to the top of a piece of paper. And I said, you might not like all that you read on this CV, but I'm more than happy to come in and have a chat with you over a cup of tea. And she liked that. She said it separated you from the crowd, and I got a job at Granada TV on the back of that. So I know it sounds daft, and lots of these things don't work, but sometimes you've got to do all you can. Do something a bit quirky sometimes. But don't get naked, by the way. But sometimes you can't. You've got to do something to separate yourself, and those things work for me.
How do you like your tea?
Pardon?
How do you like your tea?
And do I like my tea? I like my tea. Well, I'm like a child, really. I like Ribena milk and really, really milky tea. So my tea is horrible. No one has tea like that. It's disgusting. But I still like it. I only have 1 cup of tea a day, and I tend to have it at 20 to 6 every morning. So it's very stupid. Right. Let's have some other questions. Yes, Chief.
So obviously you've had a lot of jobs across the journalism scope. So obviously you've come across a lot of interns and sort of students on work experience. What is your worst type of intern or work experience person to have to deal with?
I want to be famous, that person. Doesn't have to be from Manchester, by the way. That would be Manc accent, in case you're wondering. I used to work at Manchester radio station, and those people, you might as well just say, out the door. Because I'm not in this job to be well known. I'm in this job because I love it. And I'll happily be anonymous and do the job that I do. That's what I get up for in the morning. I love asking questions, I love making TV, I love making radio, I love writing articles. I really enjoy doing it. So those people who want to go into the industry to be famous, you're in the wrong room now. If you want to do that, I think go on X Factor, apply for Big Brother, do that instead. Because if you want to be famous, that's the best way to go about it. I also think it's those people who have early on an appreciation of the industry. And by that, it comes back to the point I made to this chap down here about knowing when to ask questions. And the best people, when they've come in on work experience on our programme, are happy to sit and watch and not pester you all the time, but they'll hoover up all the information that they need. And then they might say something which is really insightful. At the right time, you think, they're switched on. And the other thing is know your subject. What do you want to work in? What's your ideal job?
Probably sort of general news or maybe in politics.
Okay, perfect. Let's say, for example, you've got a 2 weeks working on the Today programme, Radio 4. Now, the way to stand out in a programme like that is, stay out of the way of the presenters. But the other thing is, let's say, for example, you listen to everything, and you make sure when you get in, you're not tired. So you've had a good night's sleep, even if you have to get up at a ridiculous clock in the morning, because you've got to be on it from the minute you walk in that door. And if they ask you to be there at 4, you get there at 3:30, and you're ready and you're fired up. You're not slouched over your desk, and you never complain about being tired. And you get in there, and there might be one point in that 2 weeks where somebody says, "Who was the defence secretary before, whoever it is?" And you go, "Bang, that guy," and they go, "Oh, he's tuned in." And that might be your opportunity just for them to see. He's not shoved the fact that he knows politics down my face, because that's a surefire way of not being noticed. But when I really needed it, and there's somebody who works in BBC Sport now who was in a green room when Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer were having a discussion about a player that they couldn't remember, and she remembered who it was. And everybody looked at her and went, "Oh, how do you know that?" And the reason she knew that is because she knew the subject back to front, and she now works at BBC Sport. So it can be tiny little things like that can make a difference. So even your work experience, prepare for the work experience. Know the people who are on the team. Know the programme you're working on. And again, that really helps you to stand out, I think. Right, how long have we got left?
Keep going.
Okay. How many questions? Who wants to ask a question? Put your hand properly up so I can see it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's try and get through 6 and see where we are. Start up there and we'll work our way down.
Have you ever had a difficult interviewee, like Christian Guru-Murphy or Quentin Tarantino level, and how have you coped with it? Like someone who's like not really responded well to the questions, or like been offended by what you said?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've inadvertently offended a few people over the years, but I think in my job principally, some of the things I do is to ask questions, and sometimes I don't come out. I've got in trouble with various footballers and footballers' agents over the years. Got in trouble with David Cameron once, and a few other people of significance. I think the weirdest one I ever did was Venus Williams, and so, I don't know why, because she just won her match, but she just was not in the mood to talk. And at Wimbledon, how it works is you finish your match, you warm down, you do the sort of flash interview straight away afterwards. And then you go into a press conference room and you do like 5 to 10 minutes in the press conference room. And then you walk into a room which is a lot smaller than this, and you do an interview with the BBC and an interview with ESPN, with the 2 major rights holders. And when you sit in the chair, somebody is behind you and they start the clock, and you've got 2.5 minutes to do that interview with whoever it might be. And Venus Williams came in and she was on her phone, just like texting away like that. And so I'm sat in the chair and I'm thinking, okay, at what point do I sort of step in here? I said, Venus, we're ready when you're ready. I know you know we've only got 2.5 minutes, so we're ready whenever you are. And she just ignored me completely and kept texting away on her phone. I said, so whenever you're ready, Venus, we're rolling the tape, and we've only got about a minute and a half left, so whenever you're ready. And then she sort of had a bit of a huff and let out this huge exhalation of air and went, go on then. And I asked her about 6 questions, and she gave me 1-word answer to every single question. And they weren't even yes/no answers. Yes/no questions. Every single one. And she just won 6-2, 6-2. I have no idea why she was in a bad mood. She had no interest in being there. So I always think if someone's like that, my tendency is always to call them out. So I just said, rather than say thank you very much, what a lovely interview, I said, said something like, Venus, is there anything you'd like me to ask you? Because you clearly have no interest in answering any of the questions I've asked so far. And she said, not really. And I said, well, shall we end it there? And she went, okay, fine by me. I said, we will put it out. And she went, and then walked off. And then the editor had a bit of a twitching sphincter moment and didn't put it out. Maybe that was the right decision. But sometimes you get them like that, and you just, it's not your fault. You're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you just got to get on with it. But I love that. I love it when post-match and massive manager like Mourinho or Guardiola walks into the room and they're absolutely furious, and there's like millions of people watching, and you've got to ask them a question, and probably they're going to rip your head off. But I love that sort of thing.
You've got on the wrong side of Jose.
Sorry?
You've got on the wrong side of Jose before.
A few times, yeah. I've been hair-dried by Fergie a few times. But having said that, I asked him a question about being England manager, and he really lost it. Asked him a question about David Beckham going to Real Madrid and got banned for about 6 months. But he was upfront about it. He said beforehand, if anyone asks me about David Beckham, you will get banned. So, and I was stood there, thought, well, the thing is, if I don't ask you about David Beckham going to Real Madrid, I'll go back to my boss and he'll probably sack me for not asking the question. So at the end of the interview, there were 3 of us asking the questions, and I said, Sir Alex, I've got to ask you about David Beckham. There's plenty of rumours about him possibly going to Real Madrid. What can you tell us? And he just stared at me for what felt like about 2 years, about 10 seconds, and walked out of the room. And sort of I looked at the other 2 guys I was doing it with and went, I think I got away with that. And then the press officer came back in the room and went, Dan, we'll see you in 6 months. So that was but then he asked me to host his 25th anniversary dinner at Manchester United. So I think you've got to have integrity as a journalist. And my job is to ask questions, even if they don't want me to ask them. Sometimes you have to ask the tough ones. Right, sorry, what was your question?
In your career, you've made the decision to never work on Sundays because of your Christian beliefs. Is it somehow challenging being a TV presenter on national television and a believer at the same time?
That's a very good question, and well done for doing your research, by the way. No. I mean, I suppose being in the sort of modern society that we live in, people are terrified to talk about faith, aren't they? And people are worried about what they believe and how they talk about what they believe as well, because we like to pretend that we're tolerant, but we're not really that tolerant. And I've never hidden it. I'll happily discuss it. But I also think it's not my job is to be a presenter or a broadcaster. My job is not to shove my faith in people's faces. But I've chosen to live my life in a certain way, and that has closed off some opportunities to me, but it's opened others. And if you'd have said to me 20 years ago that I'd be stood here talking to you lot about all the jobs that I've had and the places that I've been and the people that I've met and interviewed, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But I think, personally, I look back and I think my faith has made me a better journalist. I think I could stand here and argue that I can tell you why that is for 10 minutes. It'll probably bore a few people, but so I think it's never been. It has been an issue over the years, but it's never been a problem. And some people have sort of questioned that decision not to work on a Sunday and said, and I suppose it flies in the face of some of what I said to you about working hard. But I've chosen to take that one day out of the week to spend with my family and do things differently. But that's why I don't think you find anybody who I've worked with in the last 20 years who would say that for those other 6 days of the week, I am like a backbreaker. I will work longer hours than anyone else because I know I've given people a reason not to employ me by choosing not to work on a Sunday. So yes, there's been issues over the years, but I wouldn't change anything. In all honesty, people say you could have done this and done that, but it's. I think that having that balance in my life of having a job that I love but not letting it completely consume me is really important. Yes.
I find it really interesting that you've chosen to live in Sheffield but also work at all these places.
What are you saying about Sheffield?
Yeah. No, I love Sheffield, that's why I live here. But I'm saying you must commute to BBC Breakfast 3 days a week and do other things. So what about the pros and cons? Because I know obviously it's cheaper in Sheffield than if you were to live in London or Manchester. Where
my wife's from Yorkshire. I'm a hostage.
Is it like a long time that you have to commute every day?
Yeah, I get up at 3:10 and I go to Manchester. I get home about 11:30, and I'll go and I'll get a train to London normally once a week, or I'll go somewhere to present some awards or whatever it might be. But Sheffield's the benefits of living in Sheffield and the people of Sheffield and sort of living in the city far outweigh the occasional pain of getting a 2-hour train to London. I've lived in London for 6 years and not for me.
Yeah, Sheffield's better, yeah.
Yeah, I love Sheffield, and I've never complained about living here because I think the quality of life in Sheffield is fantastic, and I'd much rather bring our 3 children up in Sheffield anywhere else I've lived over the years. And we've lived in Liverpool, Manchester, London. I'm from Crawley down south originally, but we love Sheffield. And my wife's mum and dad live around the corner as well, so very important to have babies. Right, I think we've got 3 questions. Who was those last 3 questions?
You've got time, because we've got, you know, it's a pain. We should have started you sooner. Okay. We've only got 2 minutes left.
All right. Okay, right. Let's ask all 3 questions together, and then I'll answer them. What's yours?
Just on a more like personal level, obviously you're quite versatile.
Yeah.
Which like aspect of the industry is your favourite? So like live TV, writing for magazines, or something like that?
Okay.
Yeah. How do you poach your ads?
Sorry?
How do you poach your ads?
I've got very good question. Who's the other one? Who else had a question? Was there one here? Yeah.
Without getting too personal, what was your lowest moment of your career and how did you bounce back?
You wanted to doubt? You wanted to doubt you? Have you got a doubt issue? You know? You're teaching them fire. Right. Let's do it in reverse order. Doubts. Lowest point in my career. Actually, I think it was when I, not lowest point, but when I suppose disappointed the most, when I got the job on BBC Breakfast and people wrote some rubbish about the fact that I couldn't do the job because I was a Christian, which is ridiculous. But that lasted about 10 seconds and then over it. What was the other part of the question?
And how did you bounce back?
Just got on with the job. And what was the first part?
What was your, without getting too personal, what was your lowest point?
Well, the worst interview I ever did was with Jordan, the supermodel, when she ran for when she ran for when she ran for Parliament. She ran in Stretford and Urmston on a Daily Star sort of sponsored thing. She got 3 votes. All 3 people turned up for her. All 3 of them are drunk. All 3 of them had magazines for her to sign. And as she left, my boss from Q103 said, if you don't get an interview with her, don't bother coming back. So as she left, I sort of ran down, all the paps were there taking pictures, ran down alongside with my microphone and said, Jordan, how have you enjoyed the experience? Will you be back next time? And then as I asked the question, I was concentrating on her, make sure I was getting the microphone in the right place and everything in this sort of hustle of journalists. And I didn't see the wheelie bin. I was heading towards a great speed, and I went into the wheelie bin, rolled out the other side of the wheelie bin, and I got the interview though, and I managed to take it back to the radio station. But I had a banana right there on the side of my face, which appeared in a little shot on the side of the Daily Star. My boss pinned on the wall, and he said, "That's how far you're willing to go to get the interview." Poached eggs. Have a look on Dan.Walker. No, what is it? I can't remember the name of my website. danwalker.tv. Have a look on there. www.danwalker.tv. There's a poached egg recipe on there. I know it sounds stupid, but if you don't know, did the stupid thing about poached eggs a few years ago, and now people religiously follow this ridiculous poached egg recipe technique, which involves you rolling the eggs around in their shells and then cracking them back into a shallow pan. No need for vinegar, no whirlpools, none of that rubbish. And then I started judging people's eggs on Twitter as a joke. And now, last weekend, they've got 856 egg pictures sent to me, which is ridiculous. And the final, what was your question?
Like favourite aspects of the industry.
Favourite aspect of the industry. I love the responsibility of sitting in a chair and knowing that whether it's news or sport, that people are listening, and you have that responsibility to make sure that what you say is accurate and truthful and impactful. And the day I suppose that really hit me was when the Manchester bomb went off, and Louise Minchin, who I worked with on Breakfast, was down at the scene, and I was in the studio. And that day we had a huge audience. Normally our average audience is somewhere between 1.5 and 1.7 million over the course of 3.25 hours. And at that point, I think we had 3.5 million people watching in the middle of the day, in the middle of the programme. And people are switching on with their family, with their kids, and you've got that responsibility to tell them that somewhere in the region of, at that time we thought 10 to 15 people had been killed watching an Ariana Grande concert. Now that is a huge responsibility, but it's also, and I don't mean this in a sort of grotesque way, I consider that to be a privileged position, because you're taking care of people as they switch on their television. You're in their homes as they're getting up in the morning in quite a vulnerable position. People are wandering around their pants and their dressing gowns, and they're there with their children, and you've got to take care of that information and present it in a way that is truthful, but it also looks after them as a viewer, but make sure you don't dumb it down, because sometimes it's a horrible world that we live in, and you've got to portray that and paint that picture in the right way. I've gone on far too long.
Not at all. Good listening to them all. Coming back next week, same time, if you all want to. For the rest of the questions. Thank you so much. That has been a really entertaining and incredibly affirming talk, because it's all the information we're telling you all the time, but told from someone who's right in there in the thick of it, doing it every day. So thank you so much to Dan. Can I just say to people that right now, Mark Bukowski is about to enter, who will give you the whole flip side from the world of public relations and the publicity stunt and the world of spin and the world of selling a story from the other side of the coin. So do not move for our final guest of the day, Mark Bukowski. If you do move, then of course your grades will go down.
It's very important to listen to him actually, because he's one of the people who stops you doing the job.
Mark, you're all right.
Stay put.
I'm good, thank you.
So yeah,
I did do some work here when it was it Forge? Was it Forge? Used to be Forge?
Yeah.
Forge, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Where's my 9 notes? That's not it.
Where did you do masters?
Sorry.
So I did my degree in history in Sheffield, and I did my masters here as well. No, I did. Well, it was weird.
Is that it?
Just to say thank you so much for that. Brilliant.
So I was going to be, like I said in there, I was going to be a teacher. But
Okay.
Fire in a minute.
Ready?
3, 2, 1.
So we've got Dan Walker here, who's known for presenting BBC Breakfast and Football Focus, and he's going to be here today to just talk about basically his decisions that he made since he left Sheffield from university. So please, could you just talk to him about the decisions you've made since then?
yeah, I was at university studying history, and then I did a postgraduate course in broadcast journalism.
Sure.
I was initially going to be a teacher, but then told I was too immature, so went into journalism instead.
Oh, really?
And once I did that postgraduate course, during that I got quite a bit of work experience, and one of those work experience placements that I had was at Hallam FM.
Okay.
So I did a bit there. I actually bizarrely, I won a commentary competition, football commentary competition at the same time, which was also run by Hallam FM.
Oh, really?
So I got 2 weeks work experience at the radio station on the back of that, and that was my sort of into the industry. That was my first job.
Your kind of foot through the door. So essentially, it's important to kind of liaise with these people, like take these opportunities, like the one you got.
For me, the course is one thing. You'll get a good qualification at the end of it, and people will look at your CV and say, okay, you went to Sheffield Hallam. We know that's a good university. We know it's a good course.
Sure.
But I think the work experience that you can get during that course can really make a difference.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
If they give you 2 placements, get 4.
Yeah.
If you get a week, get 2 weeks.
Okay.
And make sure that when you do it, just make yourself as indispensable as quickly as possible, so that when you aren't there, they almost miss you, because you make the best coffee, you do the best vox pop, you write the best headline, whatever that might be, whatever job they give you, do it to the best of your ability, and then invariably you'll get a big one.
Right, cool. Cheers. Thank you. That's cool. That's fine. Awesome. Yeah. Cheers for that. Thank you. Cheers for that, Dan.
No
nice
worries.
one.
Oh, you've got sound. Yes.
Yeah, I hope so.
It'll be the longest hour of your life. Actually, if I thought I was following Dan Walker, I would have gone home. It's like the graveyard slide, really. Dan Walker.
We always put our best on last. That's
it should be a PR. So when this starts, I thought somebody said, "Oh, do you want to talk about your career?" And I thought, how boring is that, really? So I thought I would engineer something about what I think is now and how it influences my work. I'm still doing it. So that's looking at that computer in mind. This is the first.
It's moving that, crossing that bridge, isn't it? Students. So what we could do, you could ask me questions first, so at the end. Does anyone ask me any questions first? So keep you going, or would you want to open the phone?
So how did you get into PR in the first place?
By pure accident, I think that, which I'm not sure whether this is a good story to tell you, because I was just talking outside about how many jobs you're going to have and just how difficult it is now. But when I started, I was
more technicians.
How many does it take to change that? I sort of was a spoiled-only child, son of a Polish emigre and a white Welsh miner's daughter who spoiled me. And in the sort of heady days of punk, I was inspired by Malcolm McLaren. He didn't really work very hard. I just assumed that he didn't have to work particularly hard to get a university place. And shockingly, in those sort of days, I got my A-level results, which were pretty abysmal. And roughly at the same time, my father died. So I had to sort of grow up pretty quickly. And I decided to do some work. And the only job I could get was working in a bacon factory. Hilliard's Bacon Factory, and I learned how to sell bacon. And I was pretty good at it, and I earned quite a lot of money. And I thought, why do I need to go to university? I've got my sort of career path. And after about a year, I despised it. I despised the stupid decision I made. And my life was a bit of a mess. And in the days when newspapers had situations vacant, my mum spotted, God bless her, an ad for a trainee at the Wyvern Theatre in Swindon. And the only good thing to say about Swindon is that they don't bury the dead, they prop them up in bus shelters. But it was extraordinary. It was a time when theatre got regional grants and Arts Council grants, and here was this theatre, and I went to meet this man called Christian Dandecker. And I think I've been lucky on 2 occasions, because on each time a fairly disruptive person has spotted me and given me a break. And I still do that to the day. I always want to meet people, and sometimes I always go for the square peg in a round hole. And it usually works, but sometimes the previous sergeants didn't. And this guy saw this, this sort of failed bacon and pie salesman and asked me a few questions. And of course, at the time, the Arts Council wanted to aggressively, start digging into marketing campaigns. And I sort of knew how to market bacon. I thought, well, selling bacon isn't quite the same as selling seats in a theatre. And they gave me a job. And it was my passion. I discovered my thing I wanted to do in life, which is work in theatre. And this guy, Chris Vigano, gave me, and very quickly, I was sort of writing at the time and reviewing stuff for a local newspaper. And I hung out with journalists, and I started to become a marketing and press assistant for this theatre. And it was in the days when there was a lot of touring productions, telly-generated stuff at the time, stuff that had been sitcoms on TV that then was put on the show. And I discovered something. I discovered that if you could actually break down the story in advance of the production, you could actually persuade a journalist to write about it. And the other thing I discovered was the sort of viral marketeers were the cleaners. The cleaners they were the people who gave you a great idea. So you had free research from the cleaners who were Swindon people. You would say, do you like this? Do you not like it? And they were very important to my process. And also, they would go out and virally tell these stories. But I very quickly found that if I could get the story into newsprint, then I'd get the biggest audience. And I started getting big audiences for lots of sort of publicity stunts I drew, and aggressively persuading journalists to do a lot of pre-publicity before the shows arrived. And of course, because it was a touring show, lots of West End producers saw it and said, go to London, young man. And I did, and I luckily then got a job at the the Theatre Royal Stratford East, which was then the sort of cutting-edge political theatre with the Royal Court. And again, a man who spotted me, gave me a break, and let me get on with it. So people just, and I suppose because I didn't have a career path, because I didn't really focus into success, therefore there was nothing to fail. And because I was fearless and young and brash, precocious, bit of an idiot, but I absolutely wanted to get audiences. And the thing I learned from theatre is you have no marketing budget, and without a marketing budget, you had to work harder to get print and press and TV and radio and whatever. And it was exhilarating to actually see a full house, usually driven by your others. So that's a long answer to your question. So it's sort of a bit of luck, and I think we've all got to get a bit of luck, to sort of kickstart our careers. And I had 2 laps of luck. And I never look back, because once you've got that passion, once you find that thing that really drives you, gives you a sense of purpose, and why I've probably never stopped working.
Well,
bad news?
I've got a camera which has got a HDMI which is working, which suggests the chain from here is working. The problem might be with your laptop or another one of these.
Okay.
What I'm going to suggest is we point the camera at the screen.
Well, it usually does work. I mean, it just.
Well,
I don't so many of these.
Yeah, well, beans fail at sometimes, bathtub but we know the HDMI feed from here is working. So
it's all my fault.
It is, yes. Yeah, we've got to go around it. We'll learn.
Improvisation. That's quite arty, actually.
Can we get some lights up so we can see it? How do I turn?
Ah.
Everything but that.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. This is me. So if you want to tweet about me, you can. But only say nice things.
You should like it.
But if you really hate it, make sure your tweet is pretty good. I don't want some video tweets about all these beautiful visuals are gone.
That's fine, Father.
So I think I prefaced this sort of slide by saying, you know, I started as an entertainment publicist, and I understood that generating this, and I guess I became obsessed with fame. I moved on from that theatre driving audiences to actually how do you make things famous. And it taught me a number of lessons about, and now, I guess, whether I work with Eddie Izzard or Cliff Richard or whoever it is, you know, the monster of fame buys you so much stuff. So I thought I'd just put this together. It's a little something I've done for my client, which is sound. Oh, so I won't show you that. So the biggest problem for me and my business now is the sort of the wall of noise. Everybody is a publisher, so many people with one channel operators through social media, and so where I started back in Swindon those days to sort of, you know, generate that coverage through newsprint, now I've got this problem of the wall of noise because everybody's got something to say, everybody's got the means of transmitting a message, and everybody wants to be famous in a way that I find pretty shocking today, because I still think the medium of social media is a pretty damaging thing. What's this? I can't see anything. This is such a shame. And I asked, if you can see it. I tested all this on the train. You can't see it, it's great. And I sort of asked an artist to sort of come up with an image for me about how do you sort of talk about the tweets and the social interaction and the necessity now to be, you know, so fast. You cannot buy any time. You've got to be prepared, you've got to be structured, you've got to think about how your campaigns work, because if you don't, it's out of control. We were talking in the festival earlier, which I'm fascinated to think that actually there isn't a thing called bad publicity anymore. Because of this noise, because of this agenda, things sort of roll out. Tell that to Harvey Weinstein. But, you know, if you think of all the sort of supposed crises and the commentary I've done about the death of brands like EasyJet and British Airways, the dentist that killed the lion in Minneapolis, 20,000 people were sort of picketing his dental surgery, still polishing molars in St. Paul now. David Beckham, constantly, Kate Moss. There isn't the same engagement because people don't really care, and this is what I spin out from, I guess. This idea of why, for everybody now, if you're a CEO of an organisation, if you're a brand, if you're an Instagram, if you're a YouTuber, fame is the commodity. And it matters, in a sense, more than ever before. Many CEOs, you know, are not equipped to deal with the media, and yet they're expected to be out there. Anthony Horcio, the CEO of Lloyds Bank, he could be media trained an inch in his life. He has no charisma. We expect that now because we want to feel something. It's not really about what is fact. They've got to make us feel something. And despite the social media, despite all these channels, it is harder to achieve and to sustain. And I think now, in terms of the campaigns that we organise and my competitors organise, it feels like you're running a marathon every day. You have to work so much harder, even to stand still. And so therefore, the campaigns have to be fitter in terms of strategy, well thought through, in a way that it wasn't. And everybody's telling me everything is different now, the sort of spite of fame of Miley Cyrus. But I think everything's the same. Because I'm obsessed about the now. When was the last VCR tape produced? The video cassette, the old technology that used to record.
2004, yes.
2 years ago. The last film, pre-recorded film on Amazon on VCR, was sold 2 years ago. So it's the same as vinyl in a sense. It's the same maybe through magazines and print. There is someone looking at the now and not being obsessed with what you see in many advertising agencies and media buying agencies, PR agencies. You've always got to be talking about the future and you're missing the now. Because human behaviour doesn't really change. We're driven by the same things that our ancestors were. So therefore the motivation of the crowd, and my big hero is P.T. Barnum, the great showman. He never said there was a sucker born every moment. He said that every crowd is a silver lining, because he knew that his audience, who were entertained, became multi-marketeers for him. He was originally a marketeer. So you can carry on reinventing the wheel to remain relevant, to get a job, to actually win a client, but just think for a minute about the now. Fake news. This whole idea that this is a Trump-esque modern thing driven by a troll farm, sock puppets out of Russia and whatever. This is a picture from the New York Sun in 1890. And this was supposedly a giant telescope that had actually captured life on the moon. And it sold somewhere in the region of 40,000 copies. The opposing Penny Dreadful, the tabloid of the day in New York, ran a story the next day to say it was a fake. The day after that, they had to reprint this and sold 50,000 because people wanted to know what the story's about. Just curiosity. So fake news isn't new because we want to buy into that story. And I think now, if you Google corporate storytelling, which seems to be the buzzword, you'll get thousands and thousands of millions of entries because it's supposedly a new thing. No, it's not. He who has, as I learned in Swindon, the best story wins. So it's now about the attention economy. And suppose you've got 9 seconds, the average goldfish has an attention span, and our attention span is 8 seconds. I mean, I'm on this all the time. I can't read things properly, in a sense that it comes in so instantaneously. And now, if you want to get the attention of anybody you're talking to, it's got to be done in a tweet. It's got to be done, in a WhatsApp message. And you've got to capture your idea. And brevity, and I'm always looking for great writers, not on long form, on short form, because no one reads anything. Clients don't read anything. The tsunami every day of emails is astounding. So you've got to think about that when you're constructing campaigns. And supposedly, that's it, 221 times we actually pick up the phone every day. I checked it. I did this as an exercise, and I was 180. And everybody, particularly in the bubbles of media land, everybody thinks you're interested in the idea. They're not. And there's the hubristic verticals that exist, and this is why things go wrong, because people are not looking at the mistakes of the past, because they're all there. They're looking at the future without looking at the past. This is another slide about the why and the go. You need a sound for that.
We might have a fix.
Really?
The man behind you. Let's just give it one try.
Shall we? Oh well, you're all right with this, aren't you? Go on, try.
Let's get the biggest cheer.
There it is. No, I'll carry on with this.
You sure?
Yeah, you're all right with this.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Fine, it's not. There's a fantastic blog everybody should read called The Ad Criterion. And it's written out in America by a guy who is obsessed about the now and debunks much of ad land in America by giving some harsh common sense based on the fact that the secrets of everything is locked away in the past if you look at it. It's quite cynical, sort of ranting old bloke at times, but it does say the same things. And when you start working in the brand area I have, the biggest challenge are these complete moonies who are account men who are gunning for the money. They have their tongues surgically removed from a client's posterior, and they're genius at it. But they become channeled into these, where they become brand moonies. It's like Scientology. Brands don't matter, products do. And the idea that Facebook can launch these brand campaigns is absolute rubbish. I mean, these are last year's figures, but 200 brand study on Facebook, only one showed engagement levels of 2%. But you know what? We're relevant, we're hip, we're throwing it out there. Maybe there's an old idea locked away that they could actually use, but they're too frightened to, and so the money's being chased. That's possibly why there's a crisis. I learned something, which is through a campaign I'm going to talk you, I do talk you through, is that sometimes a client does not understand the love that people have for the brand. And here's a classic example about harnessing love. And it was the campaign we did to bring back Whisper back in 2007. And it was a cabaret, it was a small project. Again, a fantastic team who took a risk. They were spending a huge amount of money through an agency called Fallon to bring the gorilla, the drumming gorilla that was supposedly a brand campaign to sort of get people away from the salmonella issue that was in the production plant. And research and deconstruction is what I always do. Time to think, time to plan, spend time persuading the client to pay for you to work out a campaign. And they wanted to bring back Whisper. And what was interesting about Whisper and Cadbury's, I doubt Mondelez who know and Cadbury's care two things about it. But I went to Cadbury's in Bourneville and found they had a research and they had an archive. And the archive for the Whisper campaign was extraordinary because it was a huge advertising campaign when it originally came out. And they were there, all the commercials, everything. So they wanted something hidden, they wanted something, for this thing. And what I quickly did was get onto Facebook at the time, and found about 4 or 5 groups of people who were involved with vintage sweets. And I went back to the client with the research. Said, no, these are too old. They're in the 40s, they're in the 50s. We want to get to, we want to get to sort of 18, 19, 20 years. So they have no relationship with this forgotten, dead chocolate bar. They don't know what you're talking about. These people love it. And if we get them involved with the campaign on Facebook to bring back Whisper, it will work. We don't have to pay them. All they wanted was the first whispers of the production line. And 4 people, a guy in Ireland, a guy in Grimsby, a fella in Isleworth, and a woman in Norwich, generated organic love to bring back Whisper. And people wanted it. The interesting thing is that's how interesting I found it there. The last Whisper bar produced back in the 1980s was cryogenically frozen so they could finish the recipe. It's true. I wonder what we do. So these 4 people got on to Facebook and generated enough love for Cadbury's to bring back the band. That was the story. On the opening day, when Whisper was in the shops, that following week, 7.5 million bars had been sold for a cost to us of 15 grand for doing the campaign. And it was the first social media campaign that we won lots of awards for it. And then this happened. I was at Glastonbury, Iggy Pop.
Watching this performance, the lead singer in this beat combo is 60 years old, back with his old mates, the leathery exhibitionist pensioner Iggy Pop with the Stooges.
So I'm watching this at Glastonbury, my small child, I'm a huge Iggy Pop fan. And at some point, Iggy Pop said, come on to the stage. This is being broadcast on BBC. And this happens. So my phone's going off in my pocket. The client's going, she said, "Genius, Mark, how do you do that?" I said nothing. I said, it just shows the lengths people will go to persuade companies to bring back. And they didn't understand the love they had for the brand. But what's interesting, when every award going, I think it became the most successful chocolate bar launch in decades, and we lost the job. We lost the job because Fallon, the agency, who were bringing back the gorilla, got so scared of this, they spent a lot of time persuading the client that this wasn't the way to go. And the ad agency took over the brand, and 5 years later, Whispers off the shelves. Because again, it's that whole process of control. That's part of my problem, is that you get involved in politics. So, so all the communication lines, and I talked about this marathon you run every day. But everything you know is wrong all the time, because you've got to now get to your own personal experience of how you feel about what you do, and in a sense, draw out those campaigns in a structured way that can actually challenge. Because I think this is a fantastic time where, as various medias break down, there is an opportunity if you're willing to risk, if you're willing to have maverick thoughts, if you really use every creative bone in your body to actually think about how you develop, a campaign. Because fame, although it's easy, is there. I call digital marketing branding raindrops in a snowstorm. It came up to me that many ad agencies now are switching to influencers, fake followers, idiot people out of reality shows who will do one tweet. The other week was I won't name the rugby player, but a very famous England rugby player was charging £20,000 a tweet. And I just thought, who's going to see that tweet? You'll pay £20,000 for one tweet. But of course, it all fits into a campaign. It's meaningless. But if you're willing to challenge that, I think you do well. So it's about the deep story now. The story that provides, this is what I feel, it really connects with people and people feel it. These are the things that transfers, and you've got to have a certain amount of sort of connection with that deep story for it to work, for this set of beliefs. And I think, there's too much obsession about the haters, particularly within social media. No one cares. My boy's 21, he laughs at people getting upset about the tweeters. It's all right for Piers Morgan to be as bold as he wants to be. He certainly doesn't like it up here when it gets him. So the haters are going to hate. Ignore them. And that's the biggest problem I have with persuading people to buy into social media campaigns, because they can't deal with the hate. It's the power of being annoying. We like annoying people, because blandness now is not an option. I won't talk about this campaign, but it was, it's about amplification, shareability, the key story, authenticity, and getting the right influencers to make the impact for you. Because you can find those influencers yourself. But just as it used to be when I was doing rock and roll publicity, the first thing you was to talk about was credibility and authenticity. You can't create fake. And there are so many agencies out there creating these false narratives for clients and whatever that's just being undone. Because the audience is smarter than the agencies at creating the campaigns. I just thought that the Red Bull jump was probably one of the daring and most brilliant things of a generation. Irrespective of what Elon Musk is doing at the moment. Because people tuned into it because it gives an experience and a value of building an ongoing relationship. It wasn't just something that was done overnight. It was followed up through a combined campaign, and actually, Red Bull was sort of part Disney, part Pepsi. They were committed to that, and they would take a risk. and they were prepared for that risk to go wrong. So this is what I consider every day. Who is my audience? Fans, like those Whisper fans, those fans that sort of buy into it. Advocates. Advocates are more important than influencers because they can help with the channeling. Communities, small communities, niche communities can be built up and actually developed. And this is a good source for unique stories. I'm only here today because of the relationships I've got. You know, people have done me favours. I don't just mean journalists, I mean other PRs and whatever. And the thing that I always tell all my people is spend time to talk to people outside, texting, WhatsApping, whatever. Go for a drink with people. Evidently, the editor of the Daily Mirror told me yesterday that no one goes to the pub anymore with these young PRs. What they tend to do is buy their contacts gym membership. They exercise with them after work at the same time lobbying with their stories, which I thought was brilliant. But your relationships you forge, you know, from the day you start working, to the day you're with your community here and studying or whatever, will be built on. But you have to invest in those relationships. And I don't mean sort of keeping in touch with them on Facebook and whatever. Spend time, because those, you know, now the value of some 20 years relationship can actually cut right way through to getting something done, and trust. I've never broken trust, and you know, I can pick up a phone to people and I'll never lie. In that sense of actually denying something I know is not true, and that builds it. It's because your clients come and go, but your relationships with people who are going to give you that media last forever. And you destroy that, you know, for the sake of a fee, and if you don't face up to the client and tell them the hard truth, it's going to erode your brand. And engagement. It's the biggest word going at the moment. But truly, how you take all those sort of things and connect to engagement, and this loyalty, understanding the loyalty that people have for an icon and invest in it because it can go very quickly. And to succeed is just commitment, and both in committing and working hard for a client or hard for yourself is something that you absolutely believe in. And the harder you get it, the greater reward there is. But all these things fit into love. You know, now it's about likes. How many likes have you got? I came, and I still come, I want my clients to be loved. Because it's much more, you know, what do you want to be? Love or light? You know, up or down? Because, you know, this is the angle you give a shit. You know? So, I'm sorry that this hasn't worked, but I'll finish off. Partly fake news, partly lying. But determination to make something work. This is Josie, the tap dancing dog in Stratford East. And when I was in that job in Stratford East, I think the first year, I was absolutely determined to make it work. And every month there was a variety show for the good folk of the East End. And it was a sort of small prize, but I could never get any publicity on it. No one was interested. And I had a spook then, a guy called Neil Duncanson, who's gone on to great things. He was working for the New Recorder. And Philip, my boss, said, you have to get some publicity for this variety show. We need to get audiences. I'm determined not to let it fail. And I thought, okay, there's a challenge. So the days went down to the pub at lunchtime, and I had a game of pool, and I came back, and I thought, I don't know. I rang Neil up, and it extemporised. I said, Neil, great story for Variety Night. He said, oh no, I've told you, but I'm not interested. So you're interested in this? We've got a tap dancing dog. I said, really? Yeah, a tap dancing dog. He said, how's it tap dance? And the only thing I could think of was a little sort of steel shoes on his feet. So I'm coming around now to do the photo. What a story. I had to find a dog. 3 hours, which I did. The woman behind the bar had this poodle, Cross. And I said I had to touch a dog, he flew, a bit like what I got now. And the story was there, front page. The great tap dancing dog at Stratford East makes its first break. So I got a front page of it, in the Neil corner. Philip was happy. And the candidates wanted to come in as well. Neil, who's gone on to great things, had great ambition, and like all local newspaper people at that day who wanted to be famous and get shifts on national newspapers, he sold this story in. And I came back to a pile of messages from the BBC, from Canadian television. There was about 40 requests to come to the show to see Tap Dancing Dog. And I thought, my little white lie has been exposed, my career is over. So I rang up Neil and I said, terrible news. He said, what? I said, Tap Dancing Dog. What about Tap Dancing Dog? I said, it's been run over. It's dead. I said, no, where? And he said, how did it get run over? And just came, I saw this big lorry come past. It said, it was an articulated lorry. Where? And the only place I could think of is where a journalist lived around the corner. I said, Wimble Lane. So there it was. In the story, terrible tragedy in Stratford East, Tap Dancing Dog, run over articulated lorry in Wimble Lane. What I didn't know, and why I think God thought this was a good story, was that the mums and dads of Wimble Lane were trying to get heavy goods vehicles banned on the zone. So 4 weeks later, outside Newtown Hall, there was a bevy of placards saying, Tap Dancing Dog today, kids tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, they did ban HGV, and so it did save lives. So, you know, sometimes a big fake story actually has a happy ending. Tell that to Donald Trump. I'm sorry about not working. I'm sorry, I've just got a touch of the old flu, so I'm down on energy. So I'm not sure what you picked up from that, but any questions? Come on. Good.
I'm a journalism student, but I've recently started
Brave.
looking at PR and exploring that. And again, you made a very convincing argument with your presentation today. So my question for you is, what sort of skills and, I guess, knowledge would you want from someone who's kind of in a PR internship?
I want to see passion. I want to see belief. I want to see energy, and I want to see commitment. And I'll give anybody a break if they've got that. I want to see what I felt at that time. And, you know, over the years, people have been really tenacious to get a job with me. I mean, one guy abseiled into my office. True. And I remember saying something in a trade magazine once about how I love wheatgrass, and I got a week's supply of wheatgrass, a little message on it every day. That's a creative way of getting in. I'm looking for personality, and I'm looking for people who are going to work hard. I'm looking for raw talent. I believe in growing my own, and I'm very proud of many people who work for me. But you get one break, you take it, you know, like I did on 2 occasions. And I remember one intern once coming in and gave him some pretty basic stuff, and he said, I'm just going out for a fruit salad, and never came back. So we called it the fruit salad moment. I thought, what an idiot, because there was an opportunity for him. I think if you're harder to get an opportunity, and you've got to take it. You can never be annoying in an organisation, and you've got to use high levels of EQ to work out the office structure and actually be pertinent and helpful in whatever you do. And I think that's magnified. I think we're all looking for raw talent. We're all looking for good people. You know, it's a break. Going back to your journalism is now about, for me, it's the genius of writing, of capturing an idea in 150 words is so difficult. Very few people can do it. But if you can, because sometimes that's the only, that's a degree of interest before we switched off and watching TV, picking up your phone, whatever. Distraction, as I said, there is crime. If you can write in brevity, you will succeed. Because, you know, this whole thing about everybody's a content provider at the moment. most of it's horseshit. I mean, I deliver great content every morning, like get up and go to the toilet. I fill up the toilet with great content. I think that it's that idea of just using, I think the one thing, apart from passion, commitment, curiosity, which carries on, but is EQ. Understanding people. If you don't understand people, what can you do, particularly in PR?
Thank you.
Okay. Only one question. Good.
What's the biggest PR disaster that you've had to deal with or fix?
My own personal PR disaster is when I used to do a lot of stunts. When I talk about hubris and channeling or whatever, not thinking through things. We launched Nando's. We got the second Nando's, and I thought it was a fantastic idea. And it was in Ealing, and we sponsored the Ealing Fete. And I thought it would be a fantastic idea to attach Nando's chicken onto helium balloons and float them all over Ealing with these helium balloons and chicken. Oh, it's fantastic! What a great idea. What a crap idea. What a crap idea. And there's still rats feasting on Nando's. What can I say I've done? I found myself getting a telephone call from the Sun the day that Gary Glitter, who was a client for many years, took his laptop into PC World in Bristol, said, can you fix this, but don't look at the hard drive. I stopped him being represented by Fred West lawyer, which I thought was not a good idea. I didn't see that was a complete and utter shock to me. But that was as a very young publicist, that was a big lesson to learn. In terms of, there are lots of other things I've done that haven't made the press, which I'm particularly proud of. That's what I'm proud. I think that it's put me on the spot. I should have loads of things come out. I can't think. Sorry, a bit funny. I'll come back to you in a minute. I'll find some more for you.
How do you deal with it when you have a client who maybe wants to challenge your beliefs and what you should be doing in your role?
That's a great question, and that's something, it's compromise. I certainly would not, in the early days of my agency, compromise. I certainly didn't work for big oil, big tobacco, and all stuff like this, and that is a big challenge. You've got 50, 60 mouths to feed, and in walks the client. You're going to pay you £1 million, and they're a bit iffy or a bit idiot. You've got to persuade the rest of the agency it's a bad idea to do it. And they say, why not? And I think that that is a constant challenge. I'm a lefty pinko, and it's quite easy. As you get older, your views merge to the right, I think that you do have to have a really powerful relationship with a client, and if someone said to me, clients always right even when they're wrong, and I've never lived by that. I've actually found a way of trying to guide the client, and particularly in tech. I've got a lot of tech, and a lot of stuff now is developing tech. And I've got one guy, I can sit down and have screaming matches with him. He's just a geek. He doesn't understand anything outside his world, and he's a machine learning geek who's probably got the root of all ills. But it's matching that passion. You want to work, you want to do the best thing for this guy, and you're not. And also, not being shady, not doing stupid things. The Bell Pottinger case is really, really open for anybody to look at. You can see why a decision was made and a compromise was made. They were exposed by the Independent when the Independent did that fake lobbying job, and they wanted to do it. They didn't Google it. They didn't think of it. They just saw the pounds, shillings, and pence. Took it on, and that had a knock-on effect going forward for them. So in the end, along comes the Guptas, and they take it. A lot of good people lost work out of that. funny enough, I was at a do the other day, a showbiz do, and there was James Henderson there, so he's trying to rebuild himself, and I noticed that there was a piece in the New York Times suggesting that these bots were created by Gupta's Indian factory of digital helpers. But that's a question all through your life. Everyone who we've asked is that moment of compromise, and it's a challenge, particularly when you've got massive.
Do you ever find yourself running out of ideas? And if you do, how do you get over it?
It's quite interesting. I had that recently. I came up with an instantaneous idea for an Australian state that we represent, South Australia. And they got a lot of publicity because it's the news agenda and social media is there full of ideas. And what's happened, they have a thing called Kangaroo Island. And I was just talking to a journalist, not on the phone, but actually physically, and he was telling me that the I'm a Celebrity island was up for grabs, that they were running out of the lease. So I just said, fantastic, we'll just write to the production company and suggest they move, I'm a Celebrity to Kangaroo Island. Very funny letter, very tongue-in-cheek, and because it was written incredibly well, it was responded to. And then you then float that across all the tabloids that I'm a Celebrity might be moving it to Kangaroo Island. That is just the simplest idea by capturing the news agenda and knowing where things are. ITV didn't like it in the end because they tried to deny it, but it was true. They were renegotiating with it. And I was with a bunch of guys from that agency called Mother, and they were I was giving this case study for them about capturing the zeitgeist and using news agenda. I said, what's your thought process? How do you break that down? And it's sort of instinct, and I think creativity. And yes, I do worry about not having as many creative ideas as I had, but you've got to surround yourself with good people. The best ideas always come from the most weird sources. Open source, get as many people in a room as possible. Everybody has a point of view, and we did something for Thornton's, which is a chocolate billboard. Huge advertising site, made out of chocolate for Easter. That to be eaten. Acres of press, and that came from the work experience kit. So everybody has that to play, but you've got to keep reading, you've got to keep close to the agenda. And there's always people who've got crazy ideas, and some of the craziest ideas just have to be edited. And there's two stunts that I wanted to do, and I worked out how to do it. And I got reminded. One was for Birmingham Council, and I worked out how to take the Hollywood sign. I always thought that would be fantastic, not Photoshop, do it for real. Take out the Hollywood sign, and originally it was going to be for Thai food. Anyway, the idiot said, didn't think it was a good idea, and Birmingham Council thought it was a good idea, and I was going to change it to Birmingham. And I got a team of SAS guys to work it out, how they would do it, and they came back and said it could be done, and it could go up for, they thought, about 4.5 minutes before it would be taken down. And the guy dryly said to the Birmingham Council director, there's a strong possibility 2 of us will be shot. I still think that's one thing I want to take that sign. Because it's real, it's a real thing, not like Photoshop now or whatever, and that has massive impact when it's real. Anybody else?
In terms of brands or celebrities, what is the difference between popularity and influence?
That's a great question. And I think that's changed. I think social media's changed a lot of things, because I think when you represent celebrities, you had to somehow take control of a journalist and persuade a journalist that it was a good idea, and this person had a great idea for a show, a film, or whatever. And the journalist would have an opinion on that person, and it was a very complicated process, even if you got some level of copy approval, or as our American publicist friends call it, meaningful feedback. What we've shown is that many celebrities don't need to go to the press. Beyonce, classic example, can do whatever she wants through millions of channels, real like Kim Kardashian. So they're using that profound influence because it's real. big numbers and real, and predominantly in America. And the celebrity factor is of course multifaceted, and you can break down, you can break down the Kardashians, like you can break down Heinz, baked beans, soup, whatever, and they know exactly the medium and the medium to do it. And I think that there is less responsibility, or expected, particularly through sports, that if you're a celebrity, then you're a multi-million-pound footballer, and you should have some sort of influence for the good. They don't want to do it. Never have them. They want to play football. Most of them don't have the brains to do it, to be frank. The ones that do have massive impact. So as people have single-channel, marketing ability through their social media channels at real scale, they don't have to engage with traditional media, and you can have profound influence over those channels for what they want to do, whether it's selling makeup or supporting a charity. And by taking out the ability where I think a lot of particularly tabloids and newspapers have lost the plot. Classic things, Liam and Cheryl's story recently, are they one or are they not? That would be speculated for years, everybody has to have some sort of perfect life. And I think those that can understand that, being a celebrity is no different from any nice person here. People have divorces, have illnesses, have fights, whatever. The magnification of that, is something that people don't quite understand through fame. They can't switch it off. You can't go down to a local corner shop and buy a pint of milk without being somebody with a camera phone. They're bounty hunters everywhere. Everybody seems to think there's a lot of money enough. There's not. But it can go viral in seconds. So there's that fear that comes from that. Should I get involved with an influencer campaign? Do I get involved with a charity? What's it mean? We're doing so. We're trying to get Emma Watson to do something at the moment. Crawling over that, lots of minors, breaking it apart, thinking it through. Because once you involve yourself in that, is the charity clean? What is the ratio of money to administration? What are you doing? So that's ever changing. So there's not a complete answer to that, because that's a change. But I think that people forget that they can be influential in politics and in social issues or whatever, but then rather not. Which I think is a shame. But I came from, at a time when it was, without the signature, lots of celebrities wanted to do it because they believed in it, and that belief is gone. You're allowed to ask questions.
I'm allowed to. PR education can be located in different places in the university. Often it's located in the business school. Here it's located in the Department of Media Arts and Communication. Partly because it has a very critical take. That's something I really respect about the PR teams. They're very attuned to kind of social and political issues. Breaking down the prejudice against PR, because PR is often associated with the Burst and Marcellus, the big PR campaigns, which are about looking after corporate interests. How do we encourage people to see the kind of communication tools and techniques and philosophy of PR, and how that can be used for things which don't have big budgets, but which are connected to communities and to social and political issues?
I think the PR industry do a very, very poor job of communicating its best practice. And you mentioned some of the big agencies, and you see the big awards. I've stopped entering awards because the bigger agencies have the resources to have awards shoots. So it's very difficult to evaluate and get good news out of what you do, particularly small agencies. There's a lot of bedroom agencies now working. Culture is critical. I came from culture, and culture within a brand is vital. You go back to the image of Red Bull. But and again made me think. I was at a PR week, sort of drinks do with all the big wigs of the agencies. Some there's this power book thing out. I looked at this room, and there was just very few women there. I said to my old clients at Sony, there's a woman, I said, Lynn, fine, you're here. And certainly, there was no ethnic mix within that group. It was men of a certain age and whatever. And I thought that was diversity in PR is a big problem. And of course now it's becoming, just like the BBC was in the 80s, where people who are connected can get their kids through. That's happening in PR. And I think that PR is being disrupted clearly by the changes going on in the media. But CIPR, representation, say PCRA, these organisations are pretty moribund, run by stale, pale, grey men. There is a big challenge. Can Lyon did an incredible job of actually bringing young and new and interesting campaigns globally through. And when you go to Can Lyon, if you can afford it, which most people can't, you realise, just how exciting things are in Africa and in South America, in Buenos Aires, basically. New Zealand is huge, and that's quite interesting because younger people are managing to get through those smaller territories, highly creative campaigns. And I think that as we become more global, and the idiocy of Brexit, I can get beyond that, is going to, perhaps create opportunities, perhaps, maybe not. But, we are becoming hubristic just about our power. So I think that, crucially, I think it's always been a problem to channel the best work. And it will continue to be a problem. But, I think the interesting thing out of Manchester, BBC going to Manchester, and certainly Scotland, and Newcastle and Leeds, there's some really interesting stuff coming out there. So it's becoming, less London-centric, because you don't really now have to be in London. You can find some fantastic talent, so you don't have to rush to it. You do if you're going to work for a big cheesy agency like Ketchum or whatever. But it's challenging. I'm not sure if that answered your question, actually.
No, I was just thinking that myself. It was an interesting digression.
I'm like a politician. But I don't think there's an easy answer. I don't think there's an easy answer to that question, because the PR industry is our worst enemy.
Any more questions, or can we move? Yeah.
So you spoke about loads of different forms of marketing and stuff like digital marketing, and events and newspapers, and throughout all your time, which ones do you find you enjoy using the most, and also which ones do you think have the most impact?
We have a metric of what we call, I hate the expression, rocks and ripples. We're doing some work at the moment to sort of say what actually pushes the needle. Again, we're discussing outside. Social media still fit. Social media can be a Twitter, for example, Instagram could be a great news wire for people to find stories. Great niche marketing, and it's a great thrill to use those things for small brands, particularly within fashion. But really, to generate traction, you've got to have high circulation, journalists that have influence. So, and TV still has massive impact. So I think it's, for me, a perfect campaign is how you build it out of social media, how you target some of the key people, and then bring it out through the Financial Times, Washington Post, New York Times do a fantastic job at the moment. That has real traction across the world. Straits Times. So you pick and you think of how to actually create these rocks, that create these ripples that spread out. So for me, the medium is always how do you fuse all those things together, the old and the new, for the best impact.
Right. One last question? Certainly not bored. No. Thank you. Despite the technical hitches, it just goes to show that substance is more important than the packaging, because I found that absolutely fascinating. I hope you did too. Thank you so much for your And thank you all for coming, because that's a wrap, as they say.
Can I just say something on behalf of Philo? Because actually I'd like to say a really big thank you to Philo. There's a massive amount of work goes in behind the scenes to make this event happen. And Philo